In the noisy cafeteria of a small-town school, Ethan, the janitor's son, carried a rusty tin lunchbox that revealed stale bread and spoiled fruit. Laughter followed him every day, echoing louder than any bell. Teachers ignored the cruelty, and the principal barely noticed. Yet behind Ethan's humiliation stood his father, Mr. Alvarez, the school's janitor, who moved with quiet dignity despite whispers of poverty. This opening scene sets the stage for Ethan's pain, the privilege of others, and the silent strength he inherited from his father. The cafeteria buzzed with the clatter of trays and the shrill laughter of children who never had to wonder where their next meal came from. At a corner table, far from the crowd, sat Ethan Alvarez. His shoulders were hunched, his hands trembling as he unlatched the dented tin lunchbox his father had packed for him. The hinges squeaked, drawing the attention he prayed would not come. Inside lay 2 slices of bread, their edges hardened and stale, with an apple that had already begun to rot. A sour smell drifted out. The first laugh was sharp, cutting through the room. Then another. Soon, a chorus of giggles and jeers erupted. "Look at that! Moldy bread!" "Janitor's trash for the janitor's kid. Don't get too close, it might smell like him." Ethan's face burned crimson. He lowered his head, pretending to focus on the bread, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. His stomach clenched tighter than his fists, but he didn't fight back. Fighting back meant detention. Fighting back meant giving them what they wanted, proof that he could be broken. A teacher walked by, tray in hand. She saw, she heard, but she didn't stop. She simply turned her head, pretending not to notice, and found a seat among the other faculty. Across the room, the principal, Mr. Crawford, sipped coffee with bored detachment. He glanced briefly at Ethan, his eyes resting on the boy's lunchbox, then shifted back to his newspaper. No rules were being broken, he would say later. Kids will be kids. And so Ethan ate in silence, each bite of the hard bread tasting like humiliation. But at the end of every school day, when the laughter had faded and the bullies had gone home, Ethan waited at the back entrance of the school for his father. Mr. Alvarez emerged in his faded janitor's uniform, sleeves rolled, hands rough from years of scrubbing floors. Yet he carried himself with a quiet grace, a dignity that no insult could strip away. "Head high, mijo," his father would whisper as they walked home together. "The world will try to make you small. Don't let it." Ethan never replied, but the words rooted themselves deep inside him. Still, when he returned the next day with the same rusted tin box and the same stale bread, the cycle of laughter returned like clockwork, and though Ethan said nothing, a storm was quietly building within him. By the time autumn leaves began to fall across the cracked sidewalks outside the school, the laughter aimed at Ethan had grown sharper, more venomous. It was no longer just about the rusty lunchbox. It was about who he was, and worse, who his father was. In the locker hallway, voices hissed like snakes. "Trash boy. Floor scrubber's kid. Bet he smells like bleach." The words stuck to him like tar, harder to wash off than any stain. One afternoon in the cafeteria, a boy with slick blonde hair deliberately knocked his tray into Ethan's lap. Pasta sauce bled down his shirt. The laughter that followed was merciless. "Oops. Guess the janitor's son can clean it up." Ethan's fists clenched so tight his nails cut into his palms. For a brief second, he imagined slamming his knuckles into that smug, grinning face. But then his father's words surfaced like a lifeline. Dignity is a weapon they can't steal. So Ethan swallowed the rage, even as it burned holes inside him. He rose quietly, took a handful of napkins and scrubbed at his shirt in silence. The more he stayed silent, the louder their laughter became. But at home, silence meant something different. Late at night, Ethan would lie awake, the faint hum of the radiator filling the small apartment. He heard it then, the cough, deep rattling muffled behind the thin bathroom door. His father tried to hide it, running water to mask the sound, but Ethan knew. He pressed his pillow over his ears, trying to silence the truth. One evening, Ethan walked into the kitchen and saw his father seated at the table, head bowed, handkerchief in his hand. A drop of blood stained the cloth. Mr. Alvarez quickly shoved it into his pocket when he saw his son. "You should be asleep, mijo," his father said softly, forcing a smile. "Tomorrow is another day. A strong day." Ethan nodded, but his chest ached. He wanted to ask, "Are you okay?" But the words caught in his throat, tangled in fear. The next morning, when Ethan returned to school, the bullies struck again. This time, one of them smeared yogurt across the back of his uniform. The smell followed him all day, a sour reminder that no corner of his life felt safe. Not the classrooms, not the hallways, not even his own skin. Yet even then, he carried his father's whispered wisdom like armor. Dignity, endurance, patience. Still, deep inside, Ethan wondered how long his father's strength could last, because in the quiet hours, he had already begun to hear it breaking. The morning began with a chill that no jacket could chase away. When Ethan stepped into the school, the hallway felt wrong. Hollow, heavy, stripped of its usual noise. His eyes instinctively drifted to the janitor's closet, where his father's mop usually leaned against the doorframe like a soldier waiting for duty. But today, the mop stood alone. The bucket sat empty, and his father was nowhere in sight. At first, Ethan thought maybe he was just late, maybe in another hallway. But whispers slithered through the corridors faster than he could chase them. By mid-morning, the truth reached him in pieces, like shards of glass cutting into his chest. His father had passed away overnight. No warning, no goodbye, just silence. The news hit him harder than any insult ever could. He sat at his desk, staring blankly at the chalkboard, the teacher's voice a blur. His hands were still, but inside his chest was collapsing. He could almost hear his father's cough echoing through the night, a sound he had pretended wasn't serious. Now that denial came back like a cruel echo. By noon, the entire school was called to the assembly hall. Students shuffled in with curiosity, their chatter low but insistent. "What happened? Why are we all here?" Teachers lined the walls, their expressions solemn. Ethan walked in last, his feet dragging like they carried stone. He stayed near the back, alone, trying to shrink into the shadows. His shirt collar felt too tight, his throat too dry. Then Principal Crawford stepped onto the stage. For once, his face wasn't indifferent. His eyes were red-rimmed, his mouth pressed into a thin line. In his hand, he carried a sealed envelope, its edges yellowed, the handwriting on it unmistakable. "Students, faculty," the principal began, his voice heavy, faltering. "Last night we lost someone who, though rarely noticed, was the backbone of this school. Mr. Alvarez dedicated his life to these halls, to the dignity of this place, and to all of you." A ripple moved through the room. Some bowed their heads, others whispered. Ethan just stared, heart pounding against his ribs. The principal lifted the envelope higher, his hands trembling. Before his passing, Mr. Alvarez left a will. He asked that it be read here, before all of you. Gasps spread across the hall. "A will? For a janitor?" Students exchanged looks, confusion etched across their faces. Ethan's breath caught. His father had never spoken of this, never hinted at secrets waiting to be told. And as the principal broke the seal, the room fell into a silence so deep, it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. The envelope opened with a crisp tear, and the silence in the assembly hall deepened. Principal Crawford's hands shook as he unfolded the letter inside. His voice, usually so commanding, faltered as he began to read. "My name is Manuel Alvarez. Some of you knew me as the janitor. Few knew me as a man." Whispers rippled through the hall. Ethan's chest tightened. His father's words, carried now in another man's voice, felt like they were meant only for him. "For years I scrubbed these floors and emptied your trash. Some laughed at me for it, and some pretended not to see me at all. But I did this work with pride, because dignity does not come from what you do. It comes from how you do it." The bullies shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Teachers avoided one another's eyes. Ethan felt a lump rising in his throat. "I was not poor in the ways you thought. Every spare dollar I earned, I saved. Every long night I worked, I invested, and I chose to leave behind something greater than myself." The principal paused, his voice cracking. "Mr. Alvarez leaves behind a donation, an endowment for scholarships, for supplies, for every child who walks these halls. No matter their name, no matter their skin, no matter their lunchbox." Gasps echoed through the room. A janitor, donating to the school? Students who once called Ethan trash sat frozen, their mouths dry. Even the teachers who ignored the taunts bowed their heads in shame. But the words were not finished. "To my son, Ethan," the principal read, voice softening. "You carried humiliation you did not deserve. You held silence when others would have fought. Know this, mijo, the world tried to make you small, but you are bigger than all of them. Do not repay cruelty with cruelty. Rise higher. Carry dignity, because dignity cannot be mocked." Ethan's eyes blurred with tears. His father's voice seemed to wrap around him, steady and strong, even in absence. The hall was utterly still. The same students who once roared with laughter now sat in suffocating silence, their faces flushed with shame. Ethan stood alone at the back, trembling, not from humiliation, but from the weight of pride and grief colliding inside him. For the first time, he felt taller, not because the mocking had stopped, but because his father's words had lifted him above it.